right, so 1911 Gold. This is a property located just north of Winnipeg, approximately 3 hours by drive, so close by. Anybody's welcome to come anytime. It's a safe area to go. What you see here is all the existing infrastructure on surface. This is a historical producer. Over 2 million ounces produced from this mine alone, and then when you combine that with other areas on the property, there's well over 2.3 million ounces produced here, and many areas still significantly open for exploration and continual development. All those assets there you see are in great shape. We were operating as late as 2022 in the mill. The underground mine was shut down in the beginning of 2018 with the idea that it needed to be redeveloped, re-drilled, and the resource expanded. One of the challenges always with this deposit, similar to the Red Lake camp, which is just to the east of us, is continuity. So these are narrow vein, high-grade underground structures that go right to the middle of earth, basically, but you have to follow them down and you have to mine them properly and carefully. They do tend to pinch and swell, but they are stacked over and over again, which is what you're going to see here shortly. So once you get into one of these veins, you just continue to chase it down, and it can be very productive for a very long time. Many forward-looking statements, as many of my peers have suggested, so just be aware, things can change, things are outside of my control. Fully permitted and built infrastructure here. That is a permitted 1,300 ton per day mill. You saw the other camp infrastructure there. There's also a permitted tailings pond just to the east of that picture you saw earlier. Everything's ready to go, great shape. Obviously, there is wear and tear that needs to be refurbished a little bit, but we're talking minimal CapEx. Somewhat similar to what you would see over in the West Red Lake camp with the Madsen mine. It's a very similar scenario. There's a 1.1 million ounce resource here. What we've done is we've updated and remodeled the resource that was done back in 2018. We've put our own mines around it, and it's helped us with our understanding of the model and of the geology. So we've rebuilt the geological model that we've used, and it's currently driving our drill program, which is right now on surface, but we are building a plan to get back into the underground here over the next 4 to 5 months. As well, we sit right in the middle of a 62,000 hectare land package, one that's heavily underexplored because historically it was owned by a number of different landowners or small private or public companies that didn't have access to significant capital. So there's very little drilling outside of the actual mine footprint, but there's very similar structures, particularly down to the southeast, but there's some other interesting anomalies elsewhere on the property. So it's a very prolific greenstone belt. It's about 100 kilometers to the west of the Red Lake camp, so very similar overall in terms of type of rock and geological structure. Capital structure here, I think the key takeaway really is that we have a very solid shareholder base right now with Eric Sprott at 17%, 2 corporate investors, and all of these people came in over the last 14 months. So these are very recent investments. 2 large corporate investors combined around 12%. We also have a couple of large institutions invested in us, a couple of North American ones and one over from the UK. We also have a number of high net worth investors, over eight or nine, I think, in total, a mix of North American and European investors. So really strong basis, as you know. It takes capital to move these projects forward, and the better access and the better support you have from your shareholders, the cheaper that capital is. This is the management team, largely put together over the last year. I've completely changed the board, completely changed the management team on site. I'm now probably the oldest one there, unfortunately, but I'm hanging in there. Gary O'Connor was a big add for me. He came in initially as an advisor and then stepped into the executive chair role. That was after spending a significant amount of time on this resource and with the team and understanding what the plan was. On top of that, we've been able to attract Annalise Kruger, Blair Schultz, we brought in McKelly. McKelly Della Libera has over 20 years or 40 years of experience. 20 years of that was with New Gold. So he's developed and drilled out producing mines that we all know today, New Afton, Blackwater, and several others. So this is where we are. We are approximately, as I said, 100 kilometers to the west of the Red Lake camp, the same Birch Uchi greenstone belt that contains all the mines over in that area, as well if you step out further to the east, it's the Spring Pearl project. Basically the same types of rocks, same controlling structures. These are all orogenic gold systems, so very much the same type of system you'd see over there, and they tend to pinch and swell a little bit, but you can get into some areas that can be quite massive when you get into the underground. This is our property map. I mainly just put this up here so you can see the infrastructure in terms of the road access, hydropower line coming right to site. It's a 20 meg line. We've got a 10 meg transformer on site right now. One of the unique things is we're selling a little bit of that power for guys to mine crypto coin on our property, which provides us with about $500,000 of revenue every year. So it just offsets our holding costs on the mine. One of those things you just do when you've got all these assets and you want to maintain them. You got to get a little creative. So I did a hot swap with my presentation, so I've got a lot of extra slides in here, which I might speed through. This is a great slide. We don't have time to dig into all of this. Fully permitted mill, as I mentioned, it's a two-stage recovery circuit similar to what you just saw earlier. There's a CIP and a gravity circuit in there, historical 94% recovery. So really good operation, tight. You can really scale this up as well. It's been well over 2,300 tons per day in the past. It's really about crushing capacity. The rest of the grinding and leach circuit has a significant amount of capacity in there. This is a look at our block model. I did take this out originally for this presentation, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. The key thing here is that the 16 level, you see level 16 and then the level 26, a lot of the indicated resource, the really high-grade material is clustered around those areas. So that's where we're going to be going first in terms of our exploration strategy when we get into the underground. And here you can just see the way these underground structures work. They just there's these host rock structures, the main one being the San Antonio mine Gabbro. That's the best host rock there, but there's also a shoreline basalt unit, and they just tend to repeat. Wherever there's a shear vein hitting those weak competent rocks, you tend to get the blowouts in terms of the mineralization, and that's been the area that's produced the most prolific areas of production historically. So there you see the main shaft mine, the A shaft, and then over to the right there you can see the Cohiba and Hinge mine. Those are two additional ramp mines that were discovered in 2008 and 2010. So relatively young, both also open at depth. And then layered on top of that is a 007 mine, which you can see a little bit better here. And that 007 mine is a shoreline basalt hosted mine, so it's quite different than the other ones, a little bit more fractured, tricky to mine. But that actually looks like it's kind of dipping, that shoreline unit looks like it's dipping down into that deep east target area down there. So there's a lot of stuff we're just kind of discovering over the last few months, and that was one of the benefits of us doing that, redoing that geological model. Strengthen our understanding, identify targets, allow us to get moving and be very productive with the drill bit. Right now we're focused on surface exploration because we can't get into the underground, but we're testing a vein structure out to the west. You can see just over there with all those intercepts, and then stepping a little bit to the right, we're testing that southeast target. The one thing we spent all week at the mine site, I just got back in on Thursday, but we were looking at it. It looks to us like that top southeast target that we're drilling off right now might extend down to that 710, 711 zone. That's actually steps out a little bit from the main San Antonio mine unit. So these are the kinds of things that we're discovering. It's not been drilled in between, so there's about 900 meters between that bottom part and where we're currently drilling right now. And it's all open ground. So we're getting excited. These weren't even primary target areas. We have other areas we want to get to. And we'll look to get into that level 16 right there in the middle, because you can see that drift extends really far out, and we can put an exploration shaft out there and start drilling down into the main part of the resource, but we can also drill up into the Cohiba mine and drill under the Hinge mine, because those mines are not closed off. They really just they stopped mining them because they were losing money back in 2015 when gold was $1,100 an ounce. Completely different model right now. If we're very careful and strategic about how we focus our drilling and de-risk the mining, I think we've got a really good shot at turning this around over the next 3 years, getting it back into production and making this into something quite significant. On top of that, we got a very large land package with a number of key targets across the property, particularly down there to the southeast. That's where those other historic producers were. About 300, just a little over 300,000 ounces produced down there. It was back in the late 1930s and 40s, and we don't mine like that anymore, but the grades were around 12 to 13 grams per ton that were taken out of there. So they can withstand a lot of dilution. And that was only down to about 120 meters below surface. So all those areas are completely open at depth. It's the same type of system. Algoma Rockland's a little different, but central Manitoba, Gunner, and I would just point out that central Manitoba and Gunner, they're actually the bookends on a 5-kilometer trend. So that entire 5-kilometer trend has not been really fully explored, except for on surface. And you can see we were getting some really good samples on surface. So we got a lot of open ground out there. We'll look to get out there once we've de-risked and developed a little bit into the existing underground mine. But that's where the real growth potential that takes us plus 100,000 ounces of production in the future. Significant re-rate potential. I think you've seen a lot of these slides. Obviously, I was cherry-picking all the companies that were valued a lot higher than us, but I still think it does add a compelling story for the fact that we've got infrastructure, we've got an existing resource, we've got a really good team in place right now with a lot of geological experience, and we have good actual underground mining experience, and we're in the process of adding additional people right now just because we want to continue down that path. We'll look to get a resource out an updated resource again out by the end of the year. We'll be drilling all year long. We'll have drill results out over the next 3 weeks, and that will probably be continuous there on. The drill's going constantly right now. We're going to bring a second drill and move back to that west target that we were drilling off because we like what we saw coming out of the ground. That'll be the first news release to come out, so that'll be good. I mean, look, all of this stuff's going to look very much like you see in the True North mine. It's going to be narrow, high grade, it's going to be continuous, and that's the kind of thing we like to see. It's all close to the mine, so it's easily accessible. It's very little development for us, and the startup cost is going to be quite minimal here in the future. But anyways, that's my presentation. Thank you very much. I'm at the booth, and I'll be around over the rest of the weekend and next week. Thank you.